One of my favorite areas to work with women and support women through is fertility, particularly when they're having a hard time conceiving, when they're unable to conceive, when they are having trouble sustaining pregnancy, and things like this. I actually see these fertility issues and reproductive imbalances as a sign of health and a sign of your body's intelligence. Your body is intelligently communicating to you that something needs to come back into balance. Furthermore, and I'll go into this a little bit deeper later on in this recording, the soul that you are attuning to, the soul that is choosing to come to earth through you, is requiring that you do a very specific work spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically in order to prepare to be their parent. So this is really an amazing, probably new perspective to you, whoever's listening to this, because we've been so conditioned to believe that our bodies are inadequate and inherently broken, that it doesn't really cross our minds that when sickness arises or dis-ease arises, that it's actually not a problem, it's a solution. And by going into this issue that's arising, this energy that's coming to the surface and asking for your attention, you will unlock something that is very critical, not only for your baby, but for yours and your baby's relationship, lifelong. The reason I love working with women, and I love working with women in general, and I love working with women during pregnancy. Of course, I love to work with babies, but the reality is that generally, women don't start thinking of the emotional and spiritual dimensions of birth and motherhood until the later parts of pregnancy, when things start to become more real and they start to realize that they have to open not only physically but emotionally and spiritually in order to birth their baby. So when there's issues with conceiving, this provides us an opportunity to start all of this work at the time of preconception. Not only is your body communicating to you that something needs to come back into balance, but also the soul that's choosing to come to earth through you needs you to do this work so that you can attune to their frequency. You can be changed and transformed and sculpted into their parent. That's the intelligence of birth. It's meant to transform us into a parent. And each and every child that we bring in carries a different set of energetic and genetic codes. They have different needs. They have different personalities. They have different reasons for why they're coming to earth. They need something completely different. So each and every birth is meant to transform us. As women, we inherently have a capacity to transform and mutate, to open on every possible level, and to become one with our greatest source of creative power, our prana, chi, mana, life force energy, the energy of creation that spiraled us all into form. This power belongs to us. This power is ours. And birth is the most powerful experience that any human can have. I find it very interesting that we're not talking about this more. And that we're not asking women about their birth stories or their conception stories. So coming back to the fertility journey, when there's an imbalance, when there's a difficulty in conceiving, this is your body's way of letting you know that equilibrium needs to be reestablished. As well, I think it's really important to point out that the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual blueprint of the human being gets set up preconception. So when I'm working with women, I'm deeply considering all of her history, all of her past experiences, all of her trauma, and usually going all the way back to her very own conception, life in utero, and birth, as variables that impact her own journey of conception, pregnancy, and giving birth. And in fact, it's inevitable that our very own conception in utero experiences and our own birth experiences come up at the time of being pregnant, trying to conceive, conceiving, being pregnant, and giving birth. So these ideas might be new to you, but it's really important that we don't forget that all of the information that we've ever taken into our beings is still present here today. So let me give you an example of how maybe your own conception could be influencing your ability to conceive. One example could be that your parents were very excited and eager to have a baby. Maybe they even consciously called you in and were so ready to receive a child into their life. They're deeply in love. Everything is set. Beautiful. And then, after you're conceived, a huge trauma happens. Maybe mom, dad dies, or maybe something really tragic in the family happens. There's a loss or a heartbreak or something like this. And mom goes into a deep state of shock or grief. And these are stories that often haven't been told to us. And if they have, maybe they've become more integrated, and maybe we're more coherent with these parts of our experience. Remember that everything that mom experienced, we internalized. And our physiology and our neurobiology was specifically informed by those energies, by those experiences. So our systems were set up in a way that ensures our survival under these conditions. And that's not a flaw in nature. That's an intelligent process that's ensuring that we are equipped to survive and hopefully thrive in the world that we're entering into. Okay, so what happens in that situation? What happens is that what gets set up in that system is that if conception happens, something really terrible will follow. And so it's possible that your biology has actually set up a system in place to ensure that conception doesn't happen. Because if conception happens, then perhaps everybody that you love around you is going to go into shock. This is an experience that is impossible for you to be explicitly aware of. And that's why when I'm working with women, there's no way that I can guide or direct these things, because these have to be really facilitated, held compassionate inquiries into these early experiences. Generally, the traumas that we have later in life, whether that be 2 years old, 5 years old, 16 years old, they're often recapitulating traumas that actually initially occurred at our conception, around our implantation, around our discovery period, our 3 trimesters growing inside of our mother, or birth. So those are the initial primal experiences. And everything that follows after that is recapitulating that which we learned when we were coming into our lives. There are so many experiences or examples that I could share to just use as analogies for how our own experiences affect our physiology, and how our emotional experience is inseparable from our physical experience. We cannot separate the mind, the body, the spirit, the emotions. This is one big interconnected highway that are feeding off of each other. And when everything's in harmony, we have a balanced, integrated human being. Why is this so important that we harness the power of conception? And I mean, okay, if we start looking at artificial reproductive technology, this would be a whole other conversation. So I'll just touch on it. And there's so much to say there, and it's not what the focus of this video is. But the fertility issues provide an opportunity for us to address issues that are deeply rooted in our early experiences or in ancestral trauma, transgenerational information that we're carrying through. And the baby that you're bringing in is saying, hey, I want you to address that because that does not have anything to do with me, and that doesn't belong to me, and I'm coming to this planet with a very clear vision of what my mission is. I'm coming to teach, to lead, to heal, to innovate, to midwife a new paradigm. I'm not coming to do the same kind of ancestral clearing and karmic termination and all this kind of work that you guys are doing. They're not coming to do that. Yes, they're going to have their own things, but overall, it is time that we really drop in and harness the power that we have to welcome a new consciousness on earth, and recognize that conception directly informs pregnancy. Pregnancy directly informs labor and birth, and the labor and the birth directly inform the lifelong parent-child connection. So when we start to prepare to bring a child into the world before conception, and when this can be a very conscious, integrated, coherent experience, then it provides an opportunity for that child to remain very coherent with their own experiences, for their consciousness to remain intact from the very beginning, for you to transform into the parent that they need you to be and they're asking you to be and you signed up to be. So a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy when they tell me they can't conceive and they're having issues around their fertility health, and I say, oh great, that's a really good sign that your body is communicating to you. This is a good sign of your health and your body's intelligence. And there's an excitement there because it's giving us an opportunity to work on what needs to be worked on. And the problem with other avenues, such as artificial reproductive technology and these things, is that the root issue does not get addressed and it does not get healed. And so in a way, we're just handing off this trauma to the future generations.